I'd like to call. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the City of Newcastle Planning Commission. Our first order of business is a roll call. If the members of the Planning Commission could please state their names.
Mark Anthony Williams.
Cynthia Batty.
Kristen Zumar. Ray Rivera. Margot Rain.
Stephen Franklin.
And I believe we have a quorum. Our next order of business is approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes to approve. The first one is from the public hearing on July 28th. Do I have any changes or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
Ray Rivera, motion to approve.
I'll second.
Seconded by Stephen, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. For our second set of minutes, it's from the actual meeting, the Planning Commission meeting on the 28th. Are there any corrections or changes to those minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
Kristen motions.
Do I have a second?
Cynthia.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Our next order of business is the public comments. So if you would like to state anything regarding what's on the agenda this evening, you are welcome to do that. Please go up to the podium. You have 3 minutes. Please sign in. And we'll be taking, we have a timer. Oh.
Can you just turn the mic on? Yeah.
Regarding what's on the agenda today, I think when we're. Can you state
Can you state your name?
Oh, sorry, John Reeves, 15
Okay.
East Second Street.
Thank you, John.
Sure. I think we should be very, very careful before we start to restrict our neighbors' rights. And we need to make sure that there is in fact compelling reason, that the public welfare or public safety is affected, and that we're applying those restrictions fairly, so that, for example, we're applying these restrictions for a particular use, and whereas another use or another use of that property that's part of the owner's rights are not being infringed unfairly or so in this case, I think we don't have evidence yet, so I would really counsel, kind of caution. We don't have evidence yet that the uses that we're being talked about infringe parking restrictions, for example. We don't have any direct evidence there's more parking restriction. We don't have evidence that there's a nuisance. There's no evidence of public nuisance, no examples of that. There's no evidence that it restricts historical uses or historical architecture, because the historical architecture has not been changed. There's no evidence that, for example, that there's any damage to the environment. There's no evidence that there's any restrictions on other people's uses that infringes the use of the next door neighbors and so forth. So I think we really need to be careful if we add any additional restrictions to private property and to sort of the otherwise, for example, you'd be subject to unconstitutional taking and other kinds of balancing act. It's a balancing act for sure, but I think without any evidence of these to justify the taking, the infringement of the rights, property rights. I think you need to be very careful about increasing or adding additional restrictions. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
State your name one more time, please, for the record.
John Reeves,
Thank you.
52nd, thanks.
Is there anybody else who'd like to make a public comment?
You should not comment. You shouldn't comment. Because you're gonna ultimately be voting for this.
In regards to chapter 8.
Perfect, knock yourself out.
Evening, everyone. Max, it's all the balls and strikes as always. It's not, Brian Manaway, 628 Delaware Street. First, I'd like to thank, the committee, the commissioners, individually and collectively, for your great work and service to the community. Always, and certainly over the last, year.
Mr. Mattingly, excuse me, I'm sorry. Could you speak into the microphone? I'm having trouble hearing you.
I think you need to bend it up a little. It's not,
Is that better?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
I apologize.
no, it's not your fault.
I understand that, you all are doing a mid-cycle review in respect to the comprehensive plan. I certainly respect your individual and collective thoughts. But did want to just raise something, that came to my attention, just by reviewing, this extensive document, but also by listening and hearing and getting a pulse of some of the community. So in respect to chapter 8, historical and cultural resources, as we all know, we live in a city that is second to none. And the document, in respect to chapter 8, goes through and highlights, a litany of jewels and treasures that we have in our city, by identifying specific buildings, by name and place. But unfortunately, it is devoid of a cultural and historical treasure in our town, and that is the Buttonwood Color School. There's no reference to the Buttonwood Color School in this chapter, and in my view, throughout this comprehensive plan. The Buttonwood Color School is truly one of a kind. In respect to all the Delaware colored schools, it is the most intact and preserved building. It is run by a board, and they are actively seeking to get on the National Register. So as a resident, as someone that has spoken with other people, and respectfully as someone on council, I just would like to ask the commission to review chapter 8 in respect to a recognition of the Buttonwood Colored School, and its desire, to get on the National Register. And my hope is that it can be listed as a goal. The hope is that by it being listed as a goal, it is something that is identified by the city, and its administration as something that it is trying to strive for, which will help codify their individual and separate efforts to move towards this recognition. Thank you.
I
Thank
have
you.
a question about that. So when I went campaigning, it turned out that the street that Buttonwood Colored School is on is not within the city of Newcastle. Is that true? I believe it is not, which doesn't mean we shouldn't include it, but I don't think it's within the city limits, and that might be why it was excluded.
I don't believe the entirety of the street is excluded.
The side closest to us is included in the city, but I was confounded to discover that the other side of the street is not, and it struck me at the time that didn't include the Buttonwood School.
I'll have to double check that.
I still think we should include it, but that might be why they didn't.
One other side limitation is that the Buttonwood Color School does have a state historical marker, in front of it, and, you can create a Bible with historical references in this comprehensive plan. But I do think it will be possible to be worthy, to include, in this chapter, a listing of all the state, designated historical sites in our city.
The Methodist Church also on Fourth Street, which I'm gonna take it on my own self to get it on the historic place, so.
Thanks. Mr. Manaway. Anyone else? Oh, do you have?
I was gonna say, in reference to the school, they send us the complaints there, that people go in the back parking lot. You mark exit, that's what falls under. There is 2 residences that are near the railroad track, that are on that side of Pleasantville, that are actually in county jurisdiction, in part of Collin Park. So there is some houses there, like there's 2, like, right where the railroad tracks, so there's a couple houses there that actually are not within the city. But I do know that we have, when we get complaints, we do get dispatched to,
So the school's in the city limits.
we do. That's when we
That'd
did
be
the breakdown of our dispatch center, that's.
Okay, we'll discuss this more when we get to the chapters, but thank you. That's good to know. Are there any other public comments? Because if there isn't, I'm gonna close the public comments. Bill, are you gonna talk?
Thank you for asking,
Thank you.
but thank you.
All right, so we'll move on. Public comments are closed. The next item on our agenda is a discussion of ordinance 556.
Madam Chair, could I ask Commissioner if it's okay to go to the next item? Because I think it's easier to discuss the.
Oh, yeah,
discussion
okay.
about it, and then
That's
I'll
fine.
line back to it. So we're here the last time to talk about ordinance 556. The commission voted to wanted to take a look at the definition of home occupation independently. With the definition of home occupation, I said I would bring a Word copy up here and then we could make changes because I didn't have good ideas of what needed to be changed. And so we've done that. I was also asked to provide some examples of other codes where they had, home occupation language, et cetera. I provided those to the commission, and then there was another memo, which I had nothing to do with, and I don't know who did it.
Right.
But it had.
Mr. Rogers.
Okay, oh, it's Chris. Good job, Chris. It was next, I was just gonna say it was an excellent memo. Who did it, but it was very good. So with that being said, I'd like to pull up the definition of home occupation. I know Antonina's trying to do it. But last time Chris was trying to do this verbally, and I thought it was kind of hard, and we put him in a tough spot to try to read out what the definition was, to try to get through it. But once we can get her back up again, we could just walk through the definition. I think it'll be easier. If you all have changes you want to make to it, then you guys can vote on whatever changes you would like. I think that this definition, here we go. So let's walk through it, right? It's an occupation or profession, and then there's A through H, right? So that's the balancing test that the zoning administrator would need to go to determine if something is a home-based business. For example, it would be precluded if it comprised more than 25% of the building total floor area of the lot, right? That'd be owned by a full-time resident. That'd be secondary to use of the dwelling. You had to maintain the residential character. You can't display goods. You can't have visits by customers between 9 p.m. and 8 a.m. And it doesn't generate traffic, and it doesn't involve machining, fabricating, automotive repair, maintenance, painting, auto storage, or outdoor storage of parts and materials. So that's the test that we apply. And then in section 2, there are a couple of, I'm going to say, examples provided. It says, in particular, home occupation includes, but is not limited to, an art studio, dressmaking, and a professional office of a lawyer, engineer, architect, certified public accounting within the building. Okay, so that's 2. And then the drafters then said with number 3, these are not home occupations. Barbershop, beauty parlors, physicians or dentist office, automotive repair, and restaurants. So you can't have it in a home-based business. So with that, really 2 and 3 are just examples, but the test is in section 1. I didn't know what you wanted to change with respect to section 1, but that's not hard. If you guys want to have other home occupations, do that. What's your pleasure, members of the commission?
Well, does it make sense to look at the aggregate input from the 10 examples that we were given? Because there are commonalities between them which are not present in our law today.
I don't know that go ahead and do whatever you want. I don't know that I understand what you're gonna do, but I'm good.
Okay, in general, for teaching, most of them do not allow teaching in any form, but the ones that do restrict the numbers to 1 to 2, and a few allow 3.
Oh, you mean of the, now I understand.
Yeah.
You're looking at the other ordinances.
Yeah, I looked through all of them, and I found the similarities between all of them because they had a lot in common.
That's for discussion with you also.
Okay.
Look at them, not me. I'm just gonna take notes.
Well, that's why we did this homework, I think, is to find out what other people were doing. Other things that others are doing is require a license, and require off-street parking. We've just been through a 7-month exercise for bringing 4 people into the city, especially, we're considering here, I'm considering here, the historic district, a tiny little place with no parking for anybody on the street. And many of these ordinances from other cities require off-street parking. We require that for short-term rentals. It's not inconsistent with what other jurisdictions do or with our own laws that we just handed up to the council to require that. If you, I know, Mr. Solicitor, that you believe that if we recommend this, that this would allow things like teaching environments, which would allow essentially an unlimited number of people to come in, except that I read this as restricting it to almost no visitors at all, the way our law is written right now. But I think we need to be specific about the numbers of visitors at any one time, as the other laws, the other 10 laws are. So we're gonna
But
walk
the
through
only
this.
ones that talk about numbers were the ones with teaching, right?
Actually,
Or childcare. Go ahead, Steve.
I can come.
You good?
Is it on? Yeah. Actually, with regards to the teaching, it was teaching specifically was mentioned was with regards to musical instruction. That and no place else is there referencing to restricting the number of occupants or so. I would like to make,
It also said people getting art classes, by the way.
okay, I would like to make a motion that we approve the amendment that Max was talking about earlier last week, or not last session, with the amendment, with the exception that includes the entire city, not just the historic district. I know we spent a lot of time focusing on the historic district, but that's only one small portion of cast. Whatever applies to one should apply to all.
Before you second that motion, please, if you're gonna get your chance, I promise. I just
Okay.
wanna get through if there's any change to that definition first, and then we can deal with that.
Would you agree that because it is silent on the number of people that are coming in, it would be a de minimis number? Or do you think it would be an unlimited number of people that could come in to participate in art studio or dressmaking or professional office? Or what's your position on that?
So I think it's a fact-based test, right? And if we look under G, it's not creative, have generate greater traffic volumes than would be expected, right, et cetera. There is no express limit on the number of people. I will agree with that. And this is one of those things where you look at it on a case-by-case basis, right? If you had someone who was coming in that had even a lawyer, right, who had their clients coming in, 6, 7, 8 times a day, increased traffic, people coming in and out, on a sign, you have to look at all those factors. So everything to me, when it comes to a home-based business, is on a case-by-case basis, look at the facts and see what they're doing.
I have to say, I don't think that makes any sense. What we're trying to do here, and I am only gonna focus on the historic district. Although I think that the other districts that would be included in this deserve similar consideration.
Well, I disagree, that it doesn't make any sense, because there's a test that we have to apply, and we apply those standards to that test. And that is applied on a case-by-case basis.
So if that's true, though, this ordinance was written to cover one case, why isn't that case just being handled? at the
I don't know,
ordinance?
I don't know about anything about this ordinance, it was done well before my time here. We're talking right now about the definition.
I understand, but the thing that you wrote, you said in the minutes, stated that it was done to deal with.
It was done as a reaction to a particular situation, that's correct, which it was determined on a case-by-case basis.
But you stated previously that if we approve this ordinance, that would by default allow the other instance. to
Right,
take
and I told your fellow commissioner that we're not talking about the ordinance right now, we're talking about the definition of this. So if you want to work on the definition, we're gonna get through the definition of home-based business, then we'll return to the particular ordinance.
Okay, so I would like to suggest that we, I guess it's in section G, that we modify it to say no more than two people at any time can come into this home-based business, and that they have to have off-street parking.
And what would your requirement for off-street parking be?
Same as the standard that we set for the short-term rentals.
Well, it was one parking space for 3 bedrooms and 4 parking spaces for over 3 bedrooms, as I recall. So again, would you do it based upon bedrooms if you're gonna use the same thing?
Well, given that you're including by implication
I'm not including any.
classes, you are, you're saying it's all swept in. You're saying that's what this is, a suite class.
Don't put words in my mouth, okay?
I would just like to say that I'm not in agreement with the parking restriction. Majority of home-based businesses that are listed and that we assume would happen in these homes are not things that would be long-term, similar to like an overnight stay. They are things that probably would occur within a short period of time, 1 hour, 2 hours, similar to somebody going to a restaurant in the city here. So I don't think putting a parking restriction would make sense for something like this.
I would like to. Actually, I agree with Reed's comment. I understand that there is concern with regards to parking in the historic district, but with regard to the business that kind of prompted this revision, there is no impact to parking, as there is more than sufficient on-street parking between 4th and 5th Street on Harmony, which is where this particular business is located. There is more than enough parking because nobody parks there. So there is no implication to parking whatsoever. There's no disruption to the motor traffic because majority of people who use this business walk. So there is no implication, there is no impact with regards to motor traffic, with regards to parking. So I agree that there really is not any need to add a parking requirement. And with regards to trying to limit or enumerate how many people can attend, the space itself, Cynthia, have you actually seen the space itself?
I've heard of it, but you're talking about one instance, Stephen, and that's why the Board of Adjustment is appropriate.
That wasn't my question.
But that's why the Board of
No.
Adjustment is appropriate.
My question was, have you seen the space?
I have not.
The space is 15 by 15.
I'm aware of that.
Okay, so basically for this instance, you're talking a maximum of 4 occupants if it's for yoga, 8 if it's for meditation, and the residents walk, including my wife, who crosses the street. There is no impact to parking. It does not detract from the neighborhood. It does not, it just does not.
But we're talking about legislation for one instance, which should be handled through the Board of Adjustment.
So Commissioner Batty, I know you had a motion that you wanted to put together and dealt with the parking, make sure I got it right. Dealt with the parking requirement, which I've asked you about to clarify, like, for no more than 2 visitors. Can you articulate that in a motion, how you want, and then we'll see if there's a second and we'll move forward.
Well, it is dependent on how many people are allowed to come to the class or whatever it is, right?
Right.
So we need to, the business, so we need to determine how many people are allowed to come. I think the assumption with a profession like a lawyer or a tax accountant or something like that is that people would come one at a time or two at a time. It wouldn't be 8 people at a time.
So you could, I think you could take that up with 2 individual motions, if that's your concern. Individual motion would be to put out a number of people or a limit, see if there's a second. We'll have a discussion and a vote on that. And then once that's determined or not determined, then that'll lead us into what the parking requirements should be.
The other thing is, most of these have some kind of fire inspection or something like that, which would get, again, been through this with short-term rentals. And if you have a space where a whole lot of people are in it for whatever reason, and it's operating as a business, it should have a fire inspection, it should have licenses. None of that is called for in this, right?
Correct.
And most of the other ordinances, I read them all extremely carefully, do call for that. And some, like the last one that was in here, where's that is? Milford classifies home-based businesses in 2 categories, a smaller one and a larger one, and they're very specific about the requirements. Major home occupation versus home occupation office. Did you all look at that and notice that it wasn't highlighted, but major home occupation had some different criteria because more people were coming into the property as a consequence of that. And in Milford, for example, major home occupation did not allow more than 2 clients at any one time to visit the premises. That's a major. So that's why I think looking at what other people do, we need to be cautious that we don't open the door to something that, the current situation that we're trying to solve for notwithstanding, and my personal liking of the individuals involved notwithstanding, we're talking about legislating for a single purpose here, which is an unwise way to create laws. It is unwise, and it looks like favoritism. We have a means to solve this problem. If we want to get into the details of this, I think we need to look at what other cities have done and be responsible in our decision-making so that we're not making laws for one instance, which is unwise.
Just a point of clarification, you guys aren't making any laws. You guys are recommending on.
I know that. I do know that.
Chris, I have a question for the commission members. Do we have any examples currently, excluding the one that's obviously on the table, of people who are operating a home business within the historic district? Now, my understanding is there's a personal trainer who trains clients. But other than that, do we have any examples that we could go by that we can say, okay, this is happening on a regular basis or is not happening on a regular basis? So do we have anything that can help us in making decisions moving forward? Who's out there, who's operating legally, if they are illegally? That's my question as we try to decide what is the best thing to do. I'm going to refer to John's comments, and homeowners do have some constitutional rights as to what they do with their property. I've been here in the city doing business for 4 years now, and I don't see a lot of home-based businesses other than people who are working from home in their professional careers, who may be a doctor or a lawyer or a tax accountant, but not people lining up down the street to go into Joe's salon to get their nails done legally, for lack of a better phrase. So if anyone can help me with that, then it would help us understand what we're looking at moving forward.
Are we allowed to answer that?
No.
We have a business in our house with 2 licenses, state as well as the town. My husband has a showroom for his work. It is done, and that is legally the location for his business.
Okay, and I've seen showrooms,
You've seen
it looks very nice. Maybe one person can go in. In regards to the Mercury Cafe, that is the upstairs is a residence, but downstairs is an official business that is designated as a business, that there is some definitive lines between upstairs and downstairs.
Residential home above the restaurant.
But what we're talking about is beyond, that's in the business district. So I think the biggest concern is what's gonna happen outside as you get into residential communities, and are you preventing something that may be coming, or is something coming that we're worried about that's not gonna happen? That's all. That's my question.
So we gotta find some way to move this forward. I don't know how to do it. So I think there's two options as far as the definition of home occupation. We could have a vote on off-street parking with other people, and sort of whether we want to require provisions very similar that we recommended in the B&B ordinance. We could also consider whether or not, like, we wanted to adopt an ordinance like Milford, right, as a split, but I need some direction, right, on how to go. So maybe the first vote is for you guys to determine whether or not you would like to recommend, or would you like to change the current definition of home occupation? And if the answer to that is yes, want to recommend changes, then you gotta give me some direction so we can write it.
I think for me, the answer is yes, and that would start with a limitation of the number of outside people that can come in along the lines of Milford, which for major, and I don't think we need to, I think one would do, but major home occupation for Milford, no more than 2 clients at any one given time shall be permitted to visit the premises to conduct business related to the major home occupation. And that's not inconsistent with, Milford was the only one I noticed in here, I tried to read it carefully, it was the only one I noticed that had 2 levels of home occupancy rules. But if we go with their worst case, that's no more than 2 clients at any one time.
I'm okay with the language as it is, and I'm definitely against putting anything with parking.
She doesn't have anything to do with parking.
Anybody else have any comment?
I think the home workout place that Bob runs, you go to that, there's no more than 2 people there at any one time.
I've been there 4, I joined it was 4, it was 4, not 6. Recently,
Oh,
Yeah, we're gonna
Really-
hold max on the rule.
Yeah.
I'm commenting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think, with regards to limitation of number of occupants or consumers would be based upon the size of the space. I think the space itself kind of dictates what you can have, what you can't have. I don't think we need to make any changes indicating or limiting the number of people who can visit the business at a given time. The space itself will dictate that. And in the instance of the one that is prompting this particular discussion, the space itself definitely dictates and limits the number of occupants who can be there. I don't think we need to impose that in writing.
Stephen, I do have a comment on that, and it's not negating what you're saying. There is a rule based on square foot on how many people you can fit into a business. So if you take that route, then you could be getting into murky water there. Let's say someone has a house that has a 1,500 square foot basement. So I think that's something that you would have to strongly consider, because they could say, we could go to, and when I was in Wilmington, it was the fire department who came in and assessed how many people could be in your building at any given time. And if they take that route, you could end up with them saying, well, I can have 20 people here. So that's my response to what you're saying. I fully understand what you're relaying. I just think that could be an outlier, and you should be prepared.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I agree with you on that. You're absolutely correct. with the fire marshal coming in and dictating with any kind of business like this very move, for example, you know, how we could make the tree cutting out.
I think you need to do that.
Can I make a comment? In our information right here, it says it does not compromise more than 25% of the total floor area. So my understanding would be whatever your square footage is, only 25% of that could be used for your business. And then the fire code would come in and assess how many people of that 25%. So I would say somebody who has 1,000 square foot house versus somebody who has a 2,000 square foot house would be limited based on that information.
I have a comment about Milford. Milford's law, I think is an interesting model for us. Says that a major home occupation shall not exceed 30% of 600 square feet, but still says no more than 2 clients at any given time. So the idea here is not to run a business in the residential area, people. That's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to make it possible for somebody to have a law practice or do their gig work or do their art studio or whatever it is. It's not to open businesses and service lots of people. It's not the objective here. And I think we need to keep that in perspective. By the way, in our house, which is 4,400 square feet, that would be over 1,000 square feet where we could put people. You know, you really want to go down that path? I don't think you do.
I'm concerned about the limitation on people. And I think we need to be looking at this not based on one particular business, but I can certainly understand where a law firm might be meeting with a couple and their children. And then we've got 3 or 4 or 5 people. I mean, gonna really tell an attorney, I'm sorry, but you have to make the kids sit in the car because they can't hear the reading of the will. I just think putting a number on it is problematic because then we're putting somebody in charge of going and counting how many people are coming in.
All laws are like that, but every other city has a limit. Every other city has a limit. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens to protect the integrity of the neighborhood and the residential nature of the zone. If people want to have a business, there's plenty of places above the Ruth House you can run your business for about $600 a month.
Do I have any further comments regarding parking and or the limitation on the number of visitors to the business?
I still want to go back to, we don't have any examples of a problem. I'm very familiar with Milford. I lived in Seaford for a long time. Milford is a huge medical community, and there are a lot of private practices in Milford all around that hospital. And I'm sure at some point that they had to say, okay, for example, in Seaford I'm just going to use this as an example. We grew up by the Nanticoke River. There were a string of residential homes that began to turn into offices. So what happened was that was no longer a residential district. So homes were being turned into doctor's offices. And I think that's very similar to Milford. I can't concretely say, but knowing a little bit about the area, I'm going to say that's a big part of their business makeup in the Milford community. As far as limiting the amount of people, I think if you're teaching a class, then you can say, okay, this is the amount of people that we want you to limit in your class based on the square footage. But what is that?
Kent, it's 4 people. Lewis, it's 3 people. Just saying.
No, I've read them.
Yeah.
I've read them all.
But I think we need to,
And
for the benefit of the people here in the room who haven't read them.
And currently, I'm gonna ask again, how many businesses are operating that are teaching classes that we can have something to go
And I mean, do you have any idea of outside of the historic district, because it's not technically permitted in the historic district, how many home-based occupation licenses you have? And I know we're putting you on the spot.
That's fair, I don't have a concrete number on our home occupations in other residential districts.
We don't have a license for that either, do we? Do we have you have to get a home occupation
You have to have a
license?
business license.
You have to get a business
All
license.
right,
So if these businesses would be allowed in the historic residential, they would also be there.
For example, we have business license for our business, assisted living locators Delaware. And no one comes to our home. We deal with our clients either by phone or we meet them in person at their home, wherever they choose to meet. Every once in a blue moon, someone will come, but we do have our business license.
well, that's fine.
And every business in the state, no matter how small, is required to have a state business license. And if you're located in the city of Newcastle, you have to have a city of Newcastle business license.
So I'm having trouble with the consensus. I need some direction.
So does anybody have a motion to make? I guess is where we're at, right?
I make a motion that home-based businesses, whatever they are doing, are limited to having 3 people at any one time who are not residents of their home in their home for the purpose of doing business.
Do I have a second? Okay, there's no second to that motion.
How about I repeat the motion with 4? This is not about running businesses in the residential district. This is the same issue that we ran through with the short-term rentals. It's about preserving the integrity of the historic district as a residential area, which is being encroached upon continually now.
I have a question historically for the town. What is the history of the town having businesses in the past? Is there any record of how that was handled? Because the town has morphed from a place that had businesses within the residential communities where they're now mainly residential, there's no business. Is there anything that you can look at that says, this is what it was like? The parking's always been the same, whether it was horse and buggy or a 1936 Ford. The parking has always been what it is on the streets that we have. Is that correct? Streets haven't changed. Maybe they've extended some streets where they've expanded for building. But if we think back in time, what was it like then, historically? And what is it like now? Do we have any examples of things were out of control? Something that you can get your teeth into, for lack of a better phrase. I'm a country boy, so I just say stuff like that. Sorry.
A lot of the businesses that there were are ones that are specifically precluded in the Newcastle law, like barber shops, physicians or dentists' offices, automotive repair, and restaurants. All of those existed, but they're currently forbidden in the law.
All right, so they can't come back. So we've altered the way that they do business historically here. They're not allowed back there. A barber shop would definitely draw a lot more traffic than Joe Attorney who's writing wills. And I don't want to belabor the point anymore. I think I've made my point clear here. Do we have any history that we can draw on? And what's the limit going to be? What do you want that limit to be? 4 people, 6 people?
I don't have any good information on, you know,
But you're gonna be on my
historic
ask that
problems
question.
or, you know, any times that I've, you know, been with the city where I've heard of or been involved with, you know, numerous complaints. You know, it wouldn't have been me taking the complaints, but I know enough about the city to have heard about it, and to my knowledge, I don't have any recollection of there being, you know, substantial issues with complaints on home, for home occupations in residential districts where they weren't permitted or where they were going beyond the criteria embedded in the definition. But it's 10 years of being adjacent to the code enforcement officer and the city administrator.
I can tell you there were doctor's offices on Dollar Street.
No, sorry. I know.
So, no, you can have an alternative.
Information.
Yeah, there's an alternative, so Cynthia, you can make whatever motion you would like. The alternative motion is that you do not recommend changes to definition of home-based business. That way. So somebody can make that motion, Cynthia, you can make her motion.
I would make the motion that we accept the proposed amendment as it.
No, not the amendment.
Oh.
We're gonna recommend, we're gonna get to the amendment in a minute. We're gonna recommend no changes to the definition of home-based business.
I would make a motion that we accept the existing definition of home business.
Rivera, I second that motion.
I think we need a roll call vote.
That's fine.
Huh?
That's fine.
Or is there any discussion, further discussion on this matter?
I think we'll be sorry, but we'll fix it with our next city council.
Mr. Franklin,
Oh. I'm sorry, yes.
Ms. Rain,
Yes.
Ms. Rivera,
Yes.
Ms. Zumar,
Yes.
Ms. Batty,
No.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
motion passes.
The motion is carried.
Okay, so then that takes us back to ordinance 556. And as explained in the public hearing and elsewhere, this is a recommendation only as it stands right now to change or allow home-based businesses in the historic district. That's what council asked you to review and recommend on. We need to do that.
Why is R1 not included in this?
Right.
I make a motion to include R1.
So as a point of order, I think you can make a recommendation to council that they include R1 with the home-based businesses. But I think we have to make a recommendation on this particular ordinance in and of itself, and you can make another recommendation on that. Just because they didn't send that to you. They only sent you this order.
Okay, you've confused me.
So we have an ordinance, council said that this is our ordinance. We want you guys to recommend to us whether or not home-based businesses should be included in the historic district. That's it.
Allowed.
Allowed, yeah, should be allowed to exist. So you vote on that. If your recommendation is to expand it, and that's a separate recommendation, which would require a second vote. So Commissioner Batty said, well, I think we should include R1. Other folks have said we want to include other things. Let's vote on the ordinance first.
Okay.
That's yes or no. And then do we want to make a recommendation to expand it? Separate motion.
So do we have any discussion regarding ordinance 556 as it stands? Do I have a motion to approve,
To recommend approval.
recommend approval of ordinance 556 as written?
I make that motion.
Rivera, I second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Can you do another roll call vote, please?
Yes. Mr. Franklin,
Yes.
Ms. Rain,
Yes.
Ms. Rivera,
Yes.
Ms. Zumar,
Yes.
Ms. Batty,
No.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Now, if you would like to make another, I know you wanted to add R1, we recommend to council that you, what's our recommendation to include R1 as you know, dealing with the
If you're
permissible.
gonna do it to everybody else, then why not, why is R one exempt from this?
That's your motion.
Residential,
Right.
one that's exempt, that's not included.
That's correct.
Do we know what?
No, the only thing that I can think of is that, under R1, under accessory uses and structures, professional office of a physician or dentist residing on the premise is already permitted as an accessory use. And that's, looking at the definition of home occupation that we just discussed. Professional office of a lawyer, engineer, architect, or certified public accountant. However, a home occupation shall not be interpreted to include physicians or dentists. Okay, so there is no inconsistency there. Professional office of a physician or dentist is permitted as an accessory use in the R1. And it's not permitted as a home occupation. Shall not be interpreted to include. So that would be okay.
So, wait a minute,
So you can't be a dentist in that area?
in R1, you can be a dentist or a physician, in addition to everything else that's already spelled out here.
If-
Whereas
if-
in R2, R3, and it would be excluded in historic. I agree with that.
And it is,
That sounds-
so it's not permitted in the R1. Permitted in the R2. And in the R3 permits, accessory use permitted in the R2, so it's also permitted in the R3.
What's permitted,
Home occupations. So if it's confirming would,
but not the physician or dentist or.
correct.
Antonina, with the, fees for the business license, that would create income for the city if more areas were able to apply for that.
Yes.
The home occupation, just for clarity, as it's defined currently, excludes barbershops, beauty parlors, physician or dentist offices, automotive repair, et cetera. So if you all think that approving this would allow physician and dentist, that is not the case.
No, it says only in R1 is that.
Right, okay. All right,
So if we added R1 to this, you would no longer be able to have a dentist or a physician in R1.
No,
Be allowed as a matter of right.
no, it's a matter of right of the
Also,
code. You would have to
allowed-
strike that, the other portion of the code, so.
we've been informed that if you're a gig worker and you're sitting at your computer doing work, you could be in violation of the code. That's what.
That's not what I said.
Okay,
Again.
clarify it for me.
Again, if you recall, I said repeatedly, we are not going to enforce this against somebody who's working from home at their desk, right, doing their job, never have.
Well, I have an art studio in the basement.
The case by case basis, which you all like. But that's the way we're gonna go about it. So the question is there a motion to either include it in R1 or not?
Do we have a motion to include our work?
So that would recommend to allow home-based businesses in the R1 district would be the motion.
I'd like to recommend that we make a motion to include home-based businesses in the R1.
I'll second that.
Okay, can we have another vote, please?
Mr. Franklin,
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Rain,
Yes.
Ms. Rivera,
Yes.
Ms. Zumar,
Yes.
Ms. Batty,
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes. And that'll be a separate recommendation written up, sort of the way that is, there's two different portions of the code. There's one that the planning commission used when they had an ordinance in front of them, that's why I want to do 556. The other one, the council can take it up if they so choose on your recommendation. Just lastly, Madam Chair, the good news to some people, you guys won't be seeing me as much anymore. I'm gonna take a backseat to other folks in my firm. I'll still be here once in a while if you need me. I'm gonna be here very often going forward.
Do we still need to approve this ordinance? I mean, we just approved expanding it, we recommended it. Do we need to actually vote on the ordinance itself?
We did,
Oh, we did.
we did, yep, voted on the ordinance, we got the recommendation, so.
Okay.
Madam Chair, with that, may I be excused this evening?
You may.
Bye.
I was thinking about it. Okay. The next item on our agenda is the discussion of the comprehensive plan, chapters 8 and 9. So we'll start with chapter 8. Does anybody have any comments?
Just clarifying that this is both 5-year and 10-year. You know, we spent time going through this, and last time we said that we would identify both 5-year and 10-year updates, right?
Correct. And let me just reiterate that what we're doing is looking through this, identifying potential things that we think need to be addressed or changed or updated. And then the secondary piece of that is this something that needs to be done right now? Or is it something that we're gonna address further when it comes to the 10-year plan? Which, as I'm grappling with all of this, I'm suspecting that this thing's gonna be starting probably that we'll need 2 years to completely go through and have hearings and write it up to be done in time. Does that make?
Yeah, and to the extent that we were talking about things to keep in mind for the 10-year readoption or reconsideration or total revision of the comp plan, it's just things to keep in mind. You know, what we're saying tonight is not gonna hold any legal weight when we go through that 10-year readoption process. But if we wanna go on record to say, future planning commission in a couple of years should consider these things, that's fine, but it's not really gonna hold any actual legal weight to the planning process.
No. Well, true, but on the other hand, a thoughtful group of people here has read all this and has thoughts, and I think that it's worth recording that. Whatever I mean, they can have their obligation any way they want, but my time is valuable. I spent a lot of time looking at this, and there's a lot of stuff that needs to be updated in 10 years.
I don't think that's Chris's point. I
Yeah.
think Chris is saying it's great that we're going through it right now, but just keep in mind that the final, revision and recommendation for the
Understand that.
next is still to come.
It's capturing the ideas now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right, but there's still gonna be a lengthy process that we're gonna have.
Yeah, I just
Remember that.
It's been a good exercise.
Absolutely.
Okay,
And I just wanted to note, for Mr. Mataway's comment earlier, and your question about is Buckland School in the city, and it is.
Oh, okay, good.
Yep.
All right, well, comments on chapter 8.
I've got a bunch for 10 years. Anybody got 5 years, wanna go first?
I think it's important.
I think it's important to add the 5-year, to add the Buttonwood colored school, especially since they're trying to get recognition for the school as historic landmark. And to add that in historic places, specifically at this time to help with their process as well.
Chris, what is the process to do that? I mean, I don't disagree. I just want to know what the process is to do that.
It would be a public hearing at the planning commission.
Talking about to add it to the comp plan or to have it get historical designation?
To add into the comp plan. Okay. I just wanna add it in there, I think it, like, Mr. Mataway said, will give them weight in going forward and trying to get it recognized beyond the city.
It would be an ordinance, proposing a change to the comprehensive plan. Believe that it goes to plus, there's definitely a public hearing with the planning commission. And then definitely a public hearing with the mayor and council. And if that's all that comes out of this process, which is fine, if that's your pleasure, then that's fine.
Would it be wise to hold that until we get a more comprehensive list of other places we may want to add?
I think so.
And
I mean, I think.
Methodist Church, 4th Street and other places that we may want to verify before we make, we could roll that all up in one ordinance, is that correct?
Yes.
All The recommendations should be, for the 5-year, should be done at this time.
Yes,
Because if you go to plus ones and have the public variance.
I agree.
Can we solicit public input on places as well? I mean, this,
You can put it on the next council agenda and public people are welcome to come. And get comment.
Oh, that's good.
It may, and not to diminish the importance of recognizing other historic structures during this 5-year review, but it would be, I would like to know from Councilman Mataway, or find out ourselves, if being recognized in the comprehensive plan will add, will help them get on the National Historic Registry. I don't know the answer to that. If it does, and the city wants to actively assist those that are actively trying to get on the National Registry, that's fine. If it doesn't, help in any way, then that's information that we should know, and it's not as important to recognize it during this 5-year review and go through the process and resources of amending the plan to recognize something that doesn't assist in any other matters.
So is it possible for us to find out
Yes,
if being listed in
Yes.
this plan helps, because that's the case? In addition to what Kristen is saying, I also believe this very building, Booker T. Washington School,
Oh.
should also be included with that as well, yes.
Where's that located?
Was that,
The Booker T. Washington School?
we're sitting in it.
Oh, this is it?
Well, correction, actually, that side is the Booker T. Washington School, this is the more recent addition.
Huh.
But there's the first part of the senior center where the sign is.
I just watched a show about that.
Let's do this. Let's put that on the agenda for next time. If there's other historic properties that people feel should be mentioned in the comp plan. And Anthony, in the meantime, can you find out about if it would help or be of no value regarding the historic designation? Thanks. Okay, any other comments?
Any of your comments?
What section?
This is on, page 84. There's a little bit of history about the city and how it developed. It's missing, the whole section about how we almost became Williamsburg North. And I think that's relevant to understanding where we are today. I wrote an extensively researched article that appeared in the Weekly in June or July about this topic. And I would suggest we update that section to include that. It was a near miss. We could have had half the buildings in town torn down, and including the Opera House and the Frank Furness Library and things like that. So we survived as an intact vernacular community by the skin of our teeth. It's an interesting object lesson. On the buildings, now on page 88, the sheriff's house has been completely renovated and is now a visitor center. And that is not represented in the copy in the pages here. So at 10 years, we ought to update that. The academy on the same page is currently licensed to Emmanuel Church, who maintain it as part of the church. And that's not mentioned. The Arsenal is currently licensed to the Newcastle Historical Society. That is on page 89. And it's also a welcome center for the city. So, all these are things that have happened in the last 8 years or
Right.
so.
I guess something we'll have to think about is because leases are somewhat short term, if something's leased and it's not like with the academy building's been leased to the church for a long time, that probably is worth mentioning. I'm not sure that by the time we get around to revising this in 10 years, if that other lease is still gonna be in place. So I think it'll be on a case by case.
Society, well, we'll see, it's been a lot of different things, but it's worth mentioning that it has been the headquarters of the Newcastle Historical Society.
Yeah, but I thought they let that lease go when we're leaving.
No, they let the library
It was
lease
the whole
go.
library.
Oh, that's what they left. Okay, sorry.
What else? Moving along,
Yes, literally.
Stoneham, this is on page 90. It's at 900 Washington Street, not Avenue. And there's a lot more information on Stoneham, which is interesting. However, Stoneham closed today in a private sale, and we have no idea what the buyer is gonna do with it. It was a 3-apartment building. And it's unclear what the new owner will do with it. The George Reed House, also on page 90, is now operated by the Delaware Historical Society. That's not mentioned in that copy there. On page 91, Separation Day and Colonial Barbecue Competition. I do not believe we have the barbecue competition anymore, so you might want to take that out.
I guess we'll just need to update that at the 10-year mark, whatever's relevant at the time.
Yeah, well, I have more, just because,
Cause you're very thorough.
here's one that'll make you really happy. The Oak Hill Book Fest, which is the reason that we live here, and I'm here to be your tsetse fly and total annoyance, also no longer exists, very sadly. So I consider that.
Is that because the former passed or?
No, it's still operated, but they just don't, I think COVID changed a whole lot of that stuff. You know, I've been trying to get them to do it again too, but. it never
Well,
happened.
maybe in 10 years they'll be back doing it.
Oh, yeah. And then the only other comment I have about chapter 8, and I've had it about all of them, is that there are many strategic aspirational statements in here which never had any action. And I just wonder how we enact some of these lofty ideas so that we do something good. Because I think we're in a mode of reaction and not in a strategic planning mode. Are these strategies for planning commission, for city council, for individuals? What is the purpose of these strategy statements here?
For the city as a whole.
Okay, well, largely, no one's acted on any of them. I think you're starting to do some of them, Antonina, and that's good. But a lot of them are just not actioned. And how do we bring more visibility to, especially because of the importance of our historic district, how do we amplify that? Those are my.
And that's why, like, every year when we go through the annual report, we should be looking at goals and strategies and saying, we should focus on this, or maybe we should take action on this, and here's how we should do it. To kind of work on these things that we already identified.
Yeah, well, Walpole City is a good step in that direction, but, and we're a very small city and I accept that, but, so it's pretty hard to get a lot of hands to do the work, but still, there's a lot to do. We could do that if we decided to.
So are you specifically talking about the ones on page 94?
Correct. So for example, S8-2B, actively promote architectural and historic preservation guidance to property owners and prospective property owners in the historic district. That's the material that I'm gonna try to give to you in the next week, Margot, that
Okay.
we discussed. So at least we're doing some of that, but we could do a lot more.
Is that a program you're working on via hack or just
No,
separate?
I'm doing it with Margot and with, Suzanne Zelder. I mean, Hack will be involved in it, but,
We are kind of working a little bit about the DD. Know what the DDD? Oh,
Cynthia, I have a question. With regards to S8-2B, is there something already that exists? I believe when we moved here, they gave us, actually, I can't locate it now, it's somewhere in our house. But it was a booklet that gave us a guideline as to what you can do, what you can't do. And I think that was given to us when we purchased our home in 2018. But I think there's something that exists.
we never got it.
Yeah.
We never got it, and And it's clear that as time passes, you need to reiterate that for people. And especially the Delaware Street businesses, which are, you know, change ownership on a regular basis, they need to have it reinforced for them too.
I have a question. It's in regards to the historical nature of buildings. I don't see anything that holds a property owner accountable for the upkeep of a particular building. The one that comes,
$400.
that's the first one that comes to mind when you come into town. Is that something that can be thought of and included in the plan moving forward? Because you've got a lot of homes that the homeowners, they go through a lot. But if someone purchases here, the understanding of, okay, yes, you own this home, but these are the rules for owning a home. Your window shutters cannot be falling down. I think we all know which properties.
There are like
in
buildings,
this-
there are codes and things like that that we do deal with to
Okay.
address some of those issues. But in terms of, you're talking about design standards and things like that, that would there's.
No, just maintaining the property so that it's, the curb appeal matches the green. The green is immaculate. Buildings are well taken care of, obviously, but
Well, how high do the weeds have to get in front of a house before something is a citation, for example? There's some on Third Street where they're knee high, so.
I mean, when you think about the town.
Well, then the city can come in and just do it, but, you know, it's not a good look.
And maybe that's not part
And there are
of this
cases
year.
where we do, and, you know, people get bad and things like that.
So do you wanna know when we see stuff like that? Should we report it? Okay.
So when one goes through a comprehensive planning process, again, as I stated at the last meeting, it's a very proactive process, a lot of public outreach. And if during that process, there is a feeling that people think that the city's housing and property maintenance portion of the code is insufficient to deal with things that we're seeing and the town is, where the city is unable to have people repair their houses to the way that that the comprehensive planning process thinks that they should, then the comp plan would say, you know, the city should, you know, amend its housing and property maintenance code to X, Y, Z.
Yeah, another one's hoarding. You know, there's a couple of hoarded houses around here which are dangerous and concerning.
So
Yeah.
that's how that would. But there's another, you know, chapter 140 of the code is housing and property maintenance. Talks about the heights of weeds, shutters falling off, those things. So if this is inadequate, if the comprehensive plan process determines that this is inadequate, then the comprehensive plan would say amend chapter 140 to X, Y, Z.
Any other comments on chapter 8? Chapter 9.
I would add the pedestrian initiative at the 10-year mark, that should be well along the way. Be on approximately page 96.
Okay.
And again, I'm just disappointed that all the objectives we had for the downtown development district have really not come to anything. And it still looks pretty awful driving into town. And also this seems to include other entrances to the city of Newcastle, and we've done nothing for further out entrances either. Should.
The brand touch, was that a marketing person who developed that? Is that what this brand touch, Newcastle, Delaware brand touch manual is?
Yeah, it was, between the Newcastle partnership and the city, and they worked to develop a style guide and logos and everything.
And that's still in use? We're still using that same, okay.
That's the sort of dark pink and blue signs you see in the historic district. They're very pretty.
They are. It's nice that they're consistent, that's good. Anyone else have any thoughts, comments on chapter 9?
I had a comment with regard to page 96, the second paragraph. And I think there's something that the city as a whole might want to address and try to aspire to fixing. And basically, paragraph 2 of page 96 is talking about both the physical and the perceptual disconnect between the historic district and the other communities in Newcastle. And perhaps when we look at this down the road, we can try to find some path to kind of maybe rectify that and resolve that. I don't know what the answer is, but you know, I agree. When I saw that, I wrote sad but true. We need to kind of find a way to address that.
I agree.
Does anybody know what the physical disconnect, are they talking about the railroad tracks or?
I think probably just the boundaries of like the historical area, the insular and the surrounding neighborhoods. I will say that we are working to move away from that, of course, and there are projects underway, like the study that we're looking at to expand the trail towards, you know, the bridge and move towards those other neighborhoods and other things. Like we're looking at walkability studies in other neighborhoods as well. So I think there are steps being taken to address that, but obviously it's not going to be resolved overnight. It's something that's been occurring for a really long time.
It's a shame that Victoria's not here tonight, because I thought that was a step to try to address some of that.
Any other comments?
I have a question about disconnect. So I'm 4 years of baby living here. I'm familiar with the outlying areas. Are we saying that they just don't consider themselves a part of Old Newcastle? Are they looking at themselves as their individual borough? Like, this is us, we live here, we don't go into the city. Do those people circulate back and forth? What is the desire to be connected to this here? Is there a desire? When you poll people and go, hey, what would you like? What will make things better for us? What would make things better for you? What will make you want to even come into the city to do a walkabout?
I can help with this. As someone who spent most of their life living in one of the outer neighborhoods, when somebody says, oh, I'm going into Old Newcastle, or I'll be in a historic Newcastle, they do not consider Van Dyke Village part of that. I'm sure as you go further out Route 9, they don't consider that. And I think part of the reason that they made the postal designation historic Newcastle was to bring some inclusion and to say, hey, everybody is part of the historic area. And places like Minquadale or Wilton or other places that have a Newcastle city mailing address are not part of the historical area. So I do think that was one way to differentiate people and try to bring more a sense of community to those who were there. In addition.
Go ahead.
In addition to that, there is no there's no safe route for me to take my bicycle from Van Dyke Village into the city. I go on Moores Lane, I go out, I go to Jefferson Farms, and then I come back through. So the bike path, while is wonderful and I use it, it's still not convenient because Route 9 is not safe to ride a bicycle. In addition to Moores Lane is starting to get that way. So I think there is a disconnect as far as we have to drive into the city to do stuff, and we do it frequently. We do it multiple times a week.
But you know what?
But that is when I say, yes, I live in Old Newcastle, no, you don't, because you don't live in Historic House. That's the perception of the city of Newcastle.
Disagree. I've lived here since
Public
'64
comment is over.
in Van Dyke Village, and I'm in Old Newcastle.
I would
Not
just
saying
say
that
that
you're
the,
not, but
that
public
the,
comment is over.
Uh,
the restaurants in town have done a lot to break that down, I think.
That's the problem
The
in Old
Mercury,
Newcastle.
Zolly's, to a lesser extent Jessup's, so it's mostly, non-Newcastle clientele. But the addition of attractive commerce in the old city has brought a lot of people in, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I'm just trying to understand, and that maybe that's not part of that conversation is not part of writing a comprehensive. Maybe that's a whole.
I think it is, and I think bringing everybody in, cause I'm on 9th Street, and I understand I mean, I can still walk. And I'm literally right next to the bike path, so I can easily jump on that bike path. But I think continuing to break down those barriers is important and something we can definitely work towards. Any other comments on the chapters? Ms. Batty, do you have a hack report for us?
I don't, because the meeting was canceled.
Oh, wow,
There were no. For the.
even better. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn then? Or does somebody else have something they really are burning to say?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Oh, one last thing, by the subsequent chapters for next time.